Octopath Traveler 0 might have the best turn-based combat Square has shipped in years, wrapped in a 100-hour epic that started life as a mobile gacha. If that sentence has you hyped and exhausted at the same time, welcome to the club. This isn't Octopath 3, it's a reimagining of Octopath Traveler, Champions of the Continent, rebuilt as a full console JRPG on PC, Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation. You get the full saga, no microtransactions, but you're also getting basically years of live service story stitched into one monster campaign. So here's what we're doing. First, how the combat and party building actually feel with this new 8-character system. Then why critics are calling this both the strongest Octopath and also a bloated retread. And finally, whether you should actually commit to this thing with your limited adult gamer time. Story first, spoiler safe. You don't pick one of 8 leads anymore. You create your own protagonist from the village of Wishvale, pick a job, look little bio details, and then watch that cozy JRPG town get absolutely annihilated. 3 villains burn it down chasing a set of divine rings. You end up as the ring bearer, and the entire early game is basically a personal revenge tour. Each villain represents a different kind of corrupted desire, wealth, fame, power. That tighter focus fixes one of the biggest problems of the original Octopaths. 8 disconnected arcs that never quite gelled. Here, reviewers are surprisingly aligned. The narrative is more consistent, darker, and the rogues gallery is the real star. Quick spoiler in 3, 2, 1. One of your main targets is a playwright who literally tortures and kills people to fuel his art. He's done up with this pale vampiric vibe and chews the scenery like a budget Kefka. Another villain's backstory brushes up against sex work and excess in a way some critics found thematically sharp, others felt was tone deaf in 2025. Either way, this is not a comfy Saturday morning JRPG. The pixel art stays relatively clean, but the script goes places. But let's be real, if you're here, it's probably for the battles. Octopath 0 takes the already good break boost system and supercharges it. You now field 8 characters at once. 4 in the front row, 4 in the back. The front row acts, back row recovers HP and SP and quietly stockpiles battle points. On any character's turn, you can tag them with their partner, so your frontliner can dump all their BP in a huge combo, then swap to someone fresh who's been charging in the back. Enemies still have shield points and weaknesses to probe. Chip shields down with the right weapons and elements, break them so they lose a turn and take extra damage, then line up your BP nukes. The difference is how wild the puzzle gets when you're juggling positioning, break timing, and an 8-person toolbox. Bosses change weaknesses mid-fight, hide behind adds that act as literal human shields, and force you to plan several turns ahead. Do you break them immediately, or stall so everyone has BP ready to explode once they're stunned? Across the reviews, this is the one thing nobody argues about: the combat slaps. Some call it the series' best. Some say it's one of the strongest turn-based systems in the genre, period. And the game knows it. The leveling curve is slow on purpose. You can't just grind 20 levels and face roll everything. You're pushed to actually learn the system, build around multi-hit skills, and swap rows cleverly instead of mashing attack. If this kind of mechanical deep dive is your thing, do me a favor. If you want more no BS JRPG break like this, hitch a ride with Veteran Game and hit subscribe. It helps more than any EXP buff you'll get in Wishvale. Party building is where opinions start to split. On one hand, you've got dozens of recruitable characters with different jobs, weapons, and support skills. Your custom protagonist is special because then change jobs and eventually cherry-pick skills from any class. Late-game mastery skills let you spread key abilities across the team, and that opens up some disgusting builds if you're willing to grind JP. On the other hand, multi-classing from Octopath 1 and 2 is gone for everyone else. Nintendo Life in particular calls out that characters now feel more locked into their roles: healer heals, DPS hits. With less of that, I broke the game in a fun way feeling from the older job system. Outside of combat, Square tried to give the mobile framework a proper home by making Wishvale your emotional and mechanical hub. You're literally rebuilding your burned hometown, placing buildings on a grid, inviting NPCs from other cities to move in, unlocking farms, training grounds, and shops that feed back into the main game. Mechanically, it's pretty simple. Some reviewers call it basic and slow burning, but thematically it lands. After some truly nasty story beats, fast traveling back to this town you've rebuilt from ashes gives the whole revenge plot a little heart. Path actions, meanwhile, have been streamlined and not everyone's thrilled about it. Instead of 8 characters with wildly different ways to bully NPCs, your protagonist effectively does everything. Gather info, recruit people to Wishvale, hire or challenge them. Success is gated behind 3 stats: wealth, power, and fame that you build by doing quests. It's cleaner and less fiddly, but multiple reviews point out it feels more transactional, less like the little puzzle layer the older games had in towns. Then there's the elephant in the room, time. This thing is huge, because it pulls together years of Champions of the Continent content. You're looking at something like 100 hours to see the main arcs, plus optional dungeons and side stories on top. The structure is still episodic. You do chapter 1 of each major arc, then loop around for chapter 2, and so on. That lets the game scale difficulty well and keep combat interesting. But it also means the pacing can feel weird. You'll hit an emotional high point in one arc, then immediately go do something tonally different somewhere else because the recommended level says so. You can feel the live service stitching if you look for it. Visually, it's very much Octopath again. HD 2D diorama look, depth of field blur, dramatic lighting. Some critics still love it and call it gorgeous. Others are clearly over it and describe it as muddy or desaturated, especially on smaller screens. It runs better and sharper on newer hardware, but don't expect a big visual leap if you've played OT2 recently. Music lands similarly. A mix of reused themes and new tracks, still excellent overall, but not a totally fresh soundtrack. So where does that leave the verdict? Putting it all together, here's the veteran game take. If you already like Octopath or classic 16-bit style JRPGs and you're hungry for a deep tactical battle system, Octopath Traveler 0 is absolutely worth your time. The 8-character, 2-row fights and villain-focused arcs make it the most mechanically satisfying and narratively coherent entry so far. And the fact they rescued a mobile story from gacha hell and turned it into a full offline saga is honestly a win. But if you bounced off the previous games because of the grind, the length, or the slightly detached chapter-based storytelling, this doesn't magically fix that. It refines it. You're still signing up for a very long, very talky, very menu-heavy JRPG that takes dozens of hours to really unfold its full combat depth. So I'll throw it to you. Is Octopath Traveler 0 the peak of HD 2D JRPGs, a 100-hour tactical feast you'll happily sink into? Or just proof that Square is running the same nostalgic play one time too many?